Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast. We are here recording episode 136, and today will be a quasi-teacher edition episode, but we're also going to make it very relatable to all of our listeners who are not teachers as well. And today we will be talking about empowering students, but also empowering you. So you out there listening, we hope this episode will put some new tools in your toolbox to feel more empowered and grab life by the horns and really succeed at whatever your goals, your passions, and your dreams are. So we've got some lofty expectations for today's episode, but I know with the help of my amazing coworker, Jared, we'll be able to get this done. So without further ado, my buddy Jared, what's going on, Jared?
Yes, it starts with you people. Empower yourselves to empower others is what I always say. I say that all the time. Chad, you know that.
That's true. It's become Jared's slogan or his motto.
Doesn't that sound like something I always just throw around to people? You know,
of
spread
course.
a little love. You can also spread a little love and follow us on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. You can follow Untranslatable Podcast. Now, let me ask you this, Chad. This weekend, now the answer can be no, but that's really going to ruin what I'm doing right now. Can we promise... Or by our listeners on Monday. This comes out on Monday. So our listeners listening to this after our fun weekend, what sort of fun things did we show them on Instagram that we did this weekend? I'll tell you what I'm doing this weekend.
Okay.
I'm going also Untranslatable 1 on Twitter.
Spread a little love.
Also spread a little love.
Spread a little love.
Reviews. Also spread a little love. Email us untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Untranslatablepodcast.com is our website. This weekend, I can promise on our Instagram and maybe our Twitter if I'm feeling friendly, and definitely our Facebook because that's connected to our Instagram. I can promise you that I will, one, go to watch my brother-in-law perform at Rick's in Ann Arbor.
Oh, nice. Okay.
He is part of a cover band. Now, you might find that on the stories. You also might find me on Sunday at an apple orchard picking apples, drinking cider,
nice.
And eating donuts.
Very Michigan-like for fall.
It's about
time.
Love it. It's sweater weather is officially here, but it's still sort of on the rocks. Today was in the low 70s, high 60s,
Okay.
sunny, so nice.
Once it drops below the mid 60s, I'd say it's getting close to. Well, I'm not as classy as Jared, people. So for me, it's not sweater weather, but it's hoodie weather. But yeah.
I did wear that one jacket I bought in Berlin for the first time.
Did you wear it inside out?
No.
Oh, come on.
I know.
So for our listeners out there wondering, we were perusing around an H&M in Berlin last spring. I think it was February or March, somewhere around there. Anyways, and I ran across this jacket that had this crazy blue and red and yellow floral pattern, but it flips inside out. So it's a reversible jacket. So on the outside, it's this
like
very
a bomber jacket.
Nice looking. Yeah, thank you. It's like a bomber jacket and it's blue.
You betcha.
But if you flip it, then it has this crazy looking lining. You need to bust that out.
You know,
especially now that it's fall.
There was no excuse for me not to because I was going out to a bar. Like it's not like I had to it's not like I was going to work.
Right. Right. I would say wear that to the cover show at Rick's, but I wouldn't if you
I could.
You could, but if you trip and fall, you're going to be stuck to that floor and that jacket's ruined.
I think I have a good amount of confidence in my balance. I was listening to a podcast the other day with this comedian, Casey James Salengo, and he was talking about how whenever he wears like a wild shirt, he loses confidence in himself progressively throughout the day. So he starts the day like, yeah, this is a great shirt. And at about 10 o'clock, he's like, oh no, I don't know if I should have worn this. Right. And then by like 3, you're like, oh God, everyone's staring at me.
That's true. That is true. I forget, there was another comedian, I forget who it was, but their whole like bit and their punchline was, he was like, I wish I was as confident as a person as I was when I go into that hat store and I buy that hat. Because that's like the same thing. It's kind of the
exact same concept. You're just like, this is a great idea. And then you're like, I mean, when am I going to wear? I have so many clothes like that. I mean, I guess that jacket's the example. Where it's like, this is going to be so cool. I'm going to rock this and look so cool. But then you're like, looking for that perfect moment that doesn't exist. And you're like, this is too flashy for this. This is too much for this. Everyone's going to look at me. Then you end up never wearing it.
That's true.
Honestly, that's how it took me a long time to wear that Austrian blazer you gave me. Because I'm like, I love this thing, but it's just like, I know I'm going to get comments on it. That's the thing, you know?
Yeah,
and they're
but
all great comments.
Right.
But it's just like, I know I'm going to have to prepare for that. And I don't like compliments and shit. It makes me uncomfortable.
That's fair. But you wear it with style. You can rock that Austrian jacket. I'm glad.
Yeah, it did feel good the first time I brought it out. And I brought it out for the first time like a year ago. And I was,
and it is Oktoberfest season, Jared. So now is the time to rock it.
I'll bring it out.
There we go. Speaking of this weekend, though, Jared, and Oktoberfest,
yes.
I will be heading to Beijing this weekend. Ooh. So I will be doing some fun stuff. Tonight, I get in probably around 6:30 or so, and then with the traffic, I won't get to my hotel until about 7:30, if I'm lucky. Maybe even 8, who knows. But then I'm going to meet up with a couple friends and get some Western food. There's a really good pizza place, so I'm going to get some pizza. Because the pizza here in Jinan it's okay.
Mostly
from what
based.
Yeah, exactly. And then at least the place that I go to here, I'm pretty sure the sauce is actually tomato sauce, but I know some places in China it is ketchup, not tomato sauce. Can't be doing that, people.
No, their ketchup is like your gasoline of crude oil, or it's like those. Yeah, right. I guess gasoline comes out of that, but you can't put that in your car and run your car off of what comes straight out of the ground.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
That's my terrible analogy.
It's a good one. But speaking of Oktoberfest, I know there will be some Oktoberfest festivities this weekend near where I'll be staying.
See, I would like for you to finally have a time where you can let loose a little bit. I feel like you've never really, like you've been, not that you haven't been able to enjoy yourself, but you haven't been able to like go out and sort of enjoy yourself and let loose.
Well, Jared, I hate to burst your bubble, but the last time I was in Beijing, I did let loose a little bit.
Oh, you did? Oh, that makes me happy. Makes me happy.
Yeah, a little bit. I was with a couple other English language fellows, and we went to a bar, this really cool bar that I'm actually hoping to go back to so I can let loose a little bit. And we ended up hitting the dance floor, and it was a lot of fun. Had a couple cocktails, hit the dance floor. It was a good time.
Do you... Is Beijing going to turn into a similar situation that Prague turned into when you were in Chomutov? Where like people were like, oh, there again, huh?
It could be, yeah. It very well could be.
And it's about the same distance, isn't it? Or same time?
Actually,
I don't know about
yeah.
Distance.
Same time. It's pretty much exactly, yeah. Well, it takes me a little longer because I have to take a cab to get to the train station. In the Czech Republic, I had a 5-10 minute walk to the bus stop, which was great, which was awesome. But it could be. Plus, I mean, let's be honest. Whenever I want something a bit more Western, Beijing is where I would go. Shanghai would be another good alternative, but that's a 3-hour train ride, which still for China is not too bad.
And for you, making friends with locals is an extra challenge.
Absolutely.
Extra challenge, excuse me.
Yeah. I've made a couple new friends, though. I was walking to class the other day, and because I am a bearded white Westerner in China, I stick out like a sore thumb. And I was standing at the crosswalk. I had my headphones in, and this woman started talking to me, and she said, "Oh, are you a professor here?" And I was walking on the way to my campus, and turns out she's a statistics professor at the university and speaks really good English. And so we had a nice conversation, and so made a new friend there. And then I was walking around the other day where I like go to like get food and that ice cream place that check out our Instagram if you want to see some amazing looking neon pink and blue cotton candy colored blue ice cream that's delicious. But I was walking around there and just kind of looking around and trying to read some of the signs and try to figure out what some of the characters might mean, because I've seen some of them now. Like I kind of know what the character for rice is, because when I go to like restaurants, you know, I know which dishes come with
everywhere.
Rice. Yep. And so I was looking around and I was trying to make heads and tails of these Chinese characters that were, you know, signs of different food places. And this other girl stopped me and said, you know, "Oh, do you need help?" And we started talking and stuff. And so she's a student, I forget which university, but she's an English major. So we were talking for a bit and she was really nice. So I do need to meet some more dude friends though, which would be good.
Right.
But yeah, speaking of things in China though, Jared.
I'm excited I'm excited for what's coming up right now, Chad.
Yes. So
One, I'm excited because I like hearing these questions, but I'm also excited because I feel like sort of since you've been in Czech Republic, I've felt like sort of your like American consigliere, you know, like
right. You are. That's
Like,
a great
listen,
word for it too.
I'm I'm the spokesperson for America here at my university, so I need some assistance with this. I can't do this by myself.
That's
It's
right.
Too much
That's
pressure.
right. Exactly. So I have some questions from my students from our English corner, which is like an English conversation hour we have every week. And every week I end the English conversation hour with questions. One, because I'm always curious what my students are thinking. And it opens up a good time. You know, I might be the first American they've ever been in contact with and can ask these questions. So
I'm kind of surprised that you always have questions too.
Well, so I give them time. I always end it with ask. I tell them, ask me whatever you want. Write it down. I have the pieces of paper here with me.
I mean, I'm
Write it
surprised
down.
every like language table thing they come prepared with, or not prepared, but they have like questions that they're curious about. You know, I feel like
they're very curious.
after like the second one, I'd be like, I don't know what else to ask. You know,
You
I'm
gotta,
just
you gotta
making
think
stuff
outside
up.
the box, Jared. Gotta think outside the box. You're a good person that you always come with really great questions. So I find it interesting that you say that.
I mean, I guess it's helped that I've been doing a podcast with you for over a year, but in
That's fair.
general, I don't know if I.
That's fair. Now, I think we may have answered this one a couple episodes ago, but I got the question again. It could have been from a different student, but I think this is still a good one to talk about. So what do you recommend for good U.S. Television programs to watch to learn English?
I think we got music before.
I get music every week.
I mean, the obvious is something like Friends, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's sort of the obvious. Good thing to watch.
A lot of people here do like The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
That's
that makes
another one.
sense.
Although-
That's one of the most popular shows in here too.
Right. Although that one, I think there's a lot of vocab that would be kind of
Yeah.
difficult.
A lot of difficult and not useful vocab. You know, like they talk
Right.
a lot about science nerd or like
Right.
video game nerd, like all like a lot of nerd stuff.
And
it's
Star
like,
Trek as well.
Right. It's like, okay, well, they're speaking Klingon now. Does that help you learn English?
Right. Who knows? Maybe it does. Who knows?
What's a current good show? I feel like reality shows are good. You know,
Yeah, they can be, for sure. I'm not a fan of them personally, but they definitely can be.
I'm not either. Let's just be clear, but I feel like they're good because
right.
that's the most normal, like current sort of conversation style. Like even Friends, which is very good because they have sort of natural conversation. Those were air quotes. That was the pause. Was everyone
Yeah.
listening to
Yeah.
us, which is more than the people watching us. Air quotes around natural conversation, but like, it is like at this point, you know, almost 30 years old. Also, so
Right.
it's like,
Oh, God, I
how
feel so
relevant
old.
is that? I know it's crazy to say
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah.
And so I feel like
think it's still very relevant, though.
My favorite show nowadays, besides for Formula One, which is great if you want to learn about people like Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen. My favorite show these days is The Good Place. Have you heard of that show?
I love The Good Place.
Do you really?
Absolutely love
One of my
The Good Place.
two of my coworkers told me about it, and me and my girlfriend just started watching it about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And we, you know, the first night we're like, all right, let's watch an episode, see if we like this. We watched 5 episodes in one night, and we're hooked now too. We love it.
It's great.
And so I'm still
am
like almost done
on
with the
last
first season, but I'm
Okay.
almost done with the first season because I just started. But I
Right.
love it. It's great.
I
and
won't
that's
spoil
relevant.
anything for you.
And I
Yeah.
think it's clever, but it's also you know like not overly clever. Like it's not clever like
Right.
Big Bang Theory where it's like like they try too hard to be clever.
Right. And it's funny. It's entertaining. Yeah, Good Place is good.
And it's also good because it's a clear kind of explanation of like good and bad. I think that's also
Mm-hmm.
good. Like it's a very sort of simple to understand concept. I think as well.
Absolutely. Another one, well, that could be a little controversial, but I love the show is The Office.
Yeah, that's good too.
And
it's
that
also
one's
slightly realistic in the sense that these people are theoretically coworkers.
right. And I think The Office is good because through the character of Michael Scott, it shows you what you should not do.
Yes, that's very true.
For sure.
But that's also kind of like The Good Place with
Right,
Eleanor.
that's true.
Which kind of shows
That is-
you. Like,
That's true. What the
what's-
fork, Jared?
You know, one of my coworkers in the meeting the other day said, if we were to do this, it would be a cluster fork. And I was just like, nice.
yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What is this
But yeah,
shirt?
that would be my recommendation. The Good Place.
Cluster Force,
show
the new show on NBC. Yeah, those are some good ones though. I'll recommend some of those. Speaking of shows though, another one. I had a student ask me, "Have The Simpsons ended?" Which is not true. It hasn't ended.
No, but I think
And
it's
then
lost it's like it's no longer in its heyday, I would say.
I think a lot of people would say that, and then they follow up by saying, "How many seasons does it have?" It's somewhere in the 30s. I'm pretty sure. It's got to be in the 30s. Would be my guess. While Jared's looking that up, I got another question for you, Jared. Which state is worth visiting in the USA? Obviously, my knee-jerk reaction to this one is obviously Michigan. Being from Michigan, missing Michigan a little bit, definitely Michigan. For me, I would say also Montana. I loved out west.
31 seasons.
31. There we go. Okay.
And
so
they're
states
still going
worth
strong.
visiting.
They're on
They
season
are.
4, episode 4 of season 31.
Nice. Very cool. So, yeah, I would say Michigan. For me, it would be, if I could give you my top 5, not in any order, it would be Michigan,
ahead.
Montana, Colorado, California, and the 5th one.
Montana.
Love Montana. Love Montana.
I mean, it's a beautiful place, but it's a tough place to like, one, they'd have to rent a car. 2, it's
That's
a tough
true.
place to sort of soak in culture.
I'm not so sure about that. I think you go to some of these mountain towns, you get a really interesting vibe of
Mix of
Western
white people?
American culture.
A fun mix of whites.
Okay,
I mean, I
and
guess
then
if you're in
last,
China, you're
my
most
last
curious
one
about
to appease Jared, even though I've never been there, would probably be New York.
Okay.
Just because there you can really get
Well,
a hodgepodge of all sorts of American
New
culture.
York's an obvious choice, but I'll say this. I think from your list, including New York, my favorite option that you said is Colorado. I think Denver gives you a great mix of sort of like real America and sort of real people. Like New York is real America, real people, but it's such a hodgepodge of people, and I think it's almost a cultural overload in a great way. But if you're trying to like soak in American culture, you can't go back to China and be like, oh, I know just what America's like because you've been to New York. But I think if you want to just soak in culture such as food or just as many different sort of styles of America, it gives you the broadest
music, art.
I think it gives you the broadest view of America. But I think my favorite choice from your list would be Denver. I think that's a great city. It's both commutable by sort of public transportation. You could also rent a car and see the mountains. And I think that's a great combination. That would be my choice. Denver, Colorado.
Nice. So, Jared, what is your ideal life going to look like when you are 70 years old? If the world still exists.
Trump's still going to be president. That's just the reality of things. No, I'm kidding.
Don't joke about that. That shit could happen.
So at that point, he's going to be supreme overlord.
Right.
No.
At that point, he's going to be a head in a jar like in Futurama.
Yeah, it's so
Because
true.
when we're 70, he won't be alive.
That's a good point. I look forward to... No, okay. And I think it's sort of like, as sad as this sounds, I think it's sort of like that typical American dream. I picture myself hopefully no longer working, but hopefully I have enough of a retirement fund or savings fund where I can live comfortably.
What's comfortably for you, Jared?
Comfortably would be 3 houses.
There we go. Balling out. I like it already.
But hold on. Let me be clear. I'm not 3 island houses. 3 houses, but I'm renting them out. Maybe one of them's an Airbnb, and so I can go to it sometimes if it's in a fun location. Maybe the other one's like just like a legitimate like house that I own, and I rent it out to a family or something like that. And then I have my own home that I live in the majority of the time. I'm retired. I can live comfortably. I can eat out when I want, but I'm not going to live extravagantly. I'm not trying to buy Ferraris and Lamborghinis, but I want to have a Porsche.
There you go. Okay.
I would like to who knows what technology is going to be like at that point, but hopefully I'm not working, but you and I could be doing something like this. Like, I don't want to just not be doing anything,
Right.
But if we could actually do this to the point where it's more than just a hobby, but not something that I rely on to support me. I mean, that'd be cool too, but like I don't need
Right.
it to be something I rely on, as for income. But if it could be like a fun side income job. Hey, by the way,
Yeah,
Spread a little love.
5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher.
that's right.
That's how
our
I see
only
myself
type
at
of
70.
payment right now is 5-star reviews.
And
But
living
yes.
somewhere where it's also, I like to live someplace, maybe like Denver or something like that. That would be cool too, where it does get snow, but also it's not like crazy. I don't know.
There we go. So I would agree with that. It'd be great to have a couple different places, like houses or properties in different spots. I would like one somewhere near Ann Arbor, Michigan, or Lansing, Michigan, either or.
Really?
Because that's close. Yeah, because that'd be close enough. Ann Arbor would be very close to my, well, okay, look, if I'm 70, my parents are gone. Okay, so probably,
Yeah, all right.
no, actually, you know
Moses.
what? Actually, you know what? If I'm 70, I might want to play somewhere near Detroit. Because I think by the time we're 70, Detroit's
Detroit
going
will
to
be
be
hot
an
again?
awesome city. I would also like a house in Red Lodge, Montana. That's where I have a lot of relatives. They have properties over there. So like my cousins and stuff. I love it out there. It's beautiful. I'd like a place, if I was really balling out, I'd love to have a place somewhere in Germany, Austria, or the Czech Republic as well. Other than
I
that,
would like
obviously...
Austria. Like in
Right.
one of the outer districts of Austria, so you can have some space, but you can also
You want
get
to
to the
go? You want
city.
to go halvesies on a place in Austria once we get making some
Let's
money?
make it happen. Let's make it happen.
All right, let's do
Or
it.
we could just be neighbors and have our own place.
Ooh, that'd be cool too. Maybe we should go halvesies first, rent that place out, get some money from that.
I mean,
then
I'm looking at the end picture. You're starting,
Right,
yeah,
right.
You're a little more realistic.
right. The other thing that I would like to have in any of these places would be obviously an even crazier collection of guitars. Like there's still a couple different types of guitars I'd like, and a recording studio. I think it would be awesome. And not only a recording studio, but like a room where you could have like epic jam sessions. So like a room with like
Right.
everything you need to jam already there. So you don't have to even bring anything. So like
Yeah.
a nice keyboard, a really nice like maybe upright piano, a drum
Bunch of
set for
microphones,
sure.
4 or 5
Right,
microphones.
Exactly. All right, but moving on, I want to get to a couple more of these questions.
Let me
'cause
dream a
these are
little
good
more,
questions, right? Yeah, right. All right. Which out of all the places you've traveled to, Jared, and this one I couldn't answer because we were running out of time and I needed to think about it. But out of all the places you visited, Jared, which country impressed you the most and why?
Have you thought about it since then?
I have since then. Yeah.
Now I have an easy answer. Vienna. I did not expect.
Yeah.
I knew of Vienna. I didn't realize the powerhouse of a city it was until I really spent time there. But
Right.
that's the easy answer. A one also that I'd have is Morocco, Marrakesh, Morocco.
Okay.
It's
and why?
a bustling city, but like nothing I've ever seen before. Like the bazaar area where they do, a lot of markets where they sell food and clothes and everything. Like I've never seen that style of commerce so bustling. Obviously, I've seen big cities like New York or Berlin where there's a lot of big fancy stores and those are bustling, but I've never seen that level of activity and that style of setting, essentially. And I've also,
Architecture?
that was the
Oh,
first
gotcha.
time, that too, actually. And that was the first time I've also experienced a cuisine that was very different. Other than that, it had been America and Europe, which is, I'm not
Okay.
going to say they're similar, but they're more similar
They
than
are
something
similar.
that's happening in Morocco.
It's more Western style
Yes,
culture.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, buddy, come to China sometime. You'll get your mind blown. let me tell you.
I believe that 100%.
Right. For me, I mean, yeah, the easy answer for me is like Vienna, Austria, or Austria and Czech Republic, obviously. And the Czech Republic impressed me. One, because of the people. I mean, I just had so many amazing relationships. I don't know why I said had, because I still do. I have so much relationships I really cherish from there. Some of them are people our listeners know from the podcast, especially my buddy David. We're still in contact quite a bit.
Shout out to Ravi. Shout out to Joanna. Shout out to Steve Walsh.
Steve Walsh, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, Steve contacted me the other day about he had some questions about teaching, which I was
cool.
I was very flattered, yeah, that he
Yeah.
came to me for questions.
Shout out.
So, Steve, if you're listening, we hope your teaching's going well, and Blatna as well.
Yes.
And the Czech Republic impressed me, too, because of the cuisine. I mean, Czech food's very heavy, but it's really tasty. Obviously, the beer and the landscape, like the nature there. And now I know why Czech people love nature so much, because the nature's so beautiful there. Other than
So do you
that,
think
though,
you were more shocked the first time you went to Czech Republic, having seen a lot of other countries already at that point, versus the first time you went to Germany as like a teenager?
I think for me, Germany was just a mind-blowing experience culturally. Like, it was the first time I'd ever been to a different culture.
Right, but
So
it wasn't
that's
the
really
most
where
like
I soaked in.
impressive. Like you weren't the most like impressed by it.
I don't think I was observant enough and aware enough
That makes
to
sense.
really take all that in at 14. All right, I
Yeah.
have two more for you, Jared. Two more. Do you? I love this question, and I cannot wait to answer this one on Wednesday next week. Do you think inner beauty is more important than external beauty? If you could only choose one, what is your choice?
This seems like a trap.
I know, right?
I mean, generally speaking, outer beauty is what gets you in the door. Inner beauty is what keeps you there. You know,
Right. Yeah.
It's hard to have that initial attraction based off of inner beauty, just off of how people meet, especially today, where
Right.
as technological as it is.
Everyone's on Instagram posting them selfies.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, but I would say in American culture, at least, I can't speak for other countries. Outer beauty is it's big business around here.
Right. Yeah. I would say though, for me at least, I would definitely, if I had to choose one, I would rather be ugly but beautiful on the inside, just because when people
Inner
do
beauty
get to know
lasts
you,
longer.
exactly, exactly.
I'd agree with that 100%.
Yeah, because I mean, I've met some people that, because I'm a hetero male, I've met some women that were incredibly beautiful, but then I got to know them, and it was just like it was only outer beauty, external beauty, and we didn't have a connection, we didn't have a very good time with each other, just because
Not
I didn't
conversationally,
like them
at
as
least.
right, exactly.
Slipping on gator piss.
All right, and sorry, Jared, I do have one more.
No, that's okay.
And I want you to answer this one for me. So put yourself in my shoes here, because you're in America, so you can't answer this one. Well, I guess maybe you could. Anyways, what is it about America that you miss the most?
I see. I mean, the obvious answer
Other
is
than you.
all right. The second obvious answer is internet.
Okay. Internet freedom.
Yeah. What do you miss the most? I think it seems like my guess for you would be friends. Because without the friends, you don't really have like it seems like you, at least my opinion on your time there, it seems like you've been like you haven't really gone out as much as you would in any other place that you've been.
That's
you
true.
haven't really experienced nightlife as much as I've ever seen you do, and it
Right.
seems like you probably miss most the knowledge or the free, not even freedom because you're allowed to do it, but just like the confidence or whatever it is to just go out and explore, especially on your own. Because even in Czech Republic, like you had no problem just being like, let's see what's happening in these bars in Chomatov tonight,
Right.
But you're
that was
not
fun.
willing to
Yeah.
do that right now.
Right. Well, some of it has to do with the fact that where I live, I think there's only 2 or 3 bars, and I've walked by them, and maybe they don't pick up until way later. But when I've walked by them, even around 9:30 or 10, there's like nobody in there.
Okay.
So that's not a great sign.
Regardless of the reason, though, that would be my answer
Right.
for you.
Okay, I think that's a good answer. Yeah, I mean the obvious answer is friends and family, right?
Right.
I mean, or at least that's the answer you should say. I would say the other thing that I really miss the most, though, too, is I don't know. There's just something different about the U.S. Like to me, it just seems more open. Like it seems more accessible. But I think that has to do with the fact that I don't speak Chinese.
Right.
I don't have access to a car. I don't fully understand Chinese culture. So I think that's probably why.
You still
it's
kind of
been a
feel
fun
like you're
learning
almost
experience.
walking on eggshells a little bit. You're like, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to do the wrong thing.
Exactly. Very true. Well, Jared, my last question came from a student about. Sorry, there's always one more, isn't there?
That's okay.
My last question is, what are your thoughts about what's been going on with the scandal with the NBA? And I'm going to be honest with you. When my student asked me this question, I wasn't really sure because in China, I don't see a lot of news, what's going on. So I'm out of the loop there. And but I also, you sent me a link as well to South Park had done an episode kind of poking fun or criticizing China. And China, I don't know if they wiped that episode off the internet or if they blocked all of South Park.
South Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's gone. Doesn't exist in China. Okay.
Nope.
Interesting.
South who? South China.
South what? Right.
Yeah, and it started with the NBA thing, which let me just give a quick background of it, so it's just for people. So it started with, and I figured out who it was. It was general manager of the Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey. He declared, I guess, support for Hong Kong's pro-democracy protesters, and obviously. Well, not obviously. China is big business, or excuse me, the NBA is big business in China. And from what I've heard, just word on the street is, I don't know if this is true, but I assume it is that they do make more money in China than they do in the U.S. at this point. And China obviously does not agree with people saying they support Hong Kong. And so China as a country and as people are sort of in a tough spot because the NBA brings in a lot of business and people love it, but they don't want people that support China publicly supporting Hong Kong as well. And so that's been, and I've also heard here in the U.S. Recently, I know in Philadelphia at a 76ers game, and I know it might have happened somewhere else too. People have been getting kicked out of basketball games for waving support for like signs that are supporting Hong Kong. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's I think the NBA is conflicted because it's like, one, they're sort of known for letting people speak more than any other sport.
Right.
And also but on the other hand, obviously they make a lot of money off of China. So it's like we want to please China, but we also don't want to come off as some sort of group that's just like saying, no, you can't talk about this, or no, you can't support this, because us as Americans, we're like, we're in a free country. We can support whoever we want. We don't understand the sort of, no, you can't, like people here support Nazis, or it's like,
unfortunately,
you can support whatever you want here.
Right.
And
it's no matter how crazy or good or bad that is. Yeah.
And I think, sorry, my computer's about to run out of battery. I think it's both a challenge for the NBA and China on how do we handle this, because it's big money for both of them.
Right. And it is crazy. I mean, the amount of students I have that wear NBA jerseys, a lot of Steph Curry jerseys.
LeBron James?
Couple Lakers, LeBron James jerseys. I see more Steph Curry than I do LeBron.
Wow, interesting.
If I had $1 for every person I see walking around in Jordans, I could buy you a house here in China, Jared. No problem.
Probably here in Detroit too. Let's be honest.
Right. So yeah, and it's huge business. And the thing is in China is you don't criticize China in general. You don't criticize the government.
I'm not trying to get any of your students arrested, but has there been conversation about it in your classroom? Like, are they willing to talk about how they feel about it?
I haven't asked them about it. This would be something that we would talk about probably in English corner, not in the classroom, just because I have so much stuff I have to cover. I tend to just steer clear of anything related to that could be seen as like controversial.
Politically charged.
Right. Right. And the other thing is that I'm sure some of my students probably are against the backlash maybe, but I'm not really sure.
If they'll
it's really hard to say.
But even if they are against it, will they say it? That's the thing.
Probably not.
Right.
Probably not.
Which I understand. I'm not faulting them. I understand that.
But yeah, I do too.
But yeah, I mean, I guess my only question is, it's like, when it comes to the South Park thing, so South Park had an episode recently where they made fun of sort of China's
Censorship, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so China's response was, censoring South Park, and now people in China no longer have access to South Park. I guess just me as the American, I just don't understand how that is helpful, where it's almost like I have family from the South, and they always talk about how, like, as kids, like, their parents sheltered them to the point where it hurt them, like they didn't talk about anything, girls didn't know about their periods, and they were 16 or 17 having them or whatever, and it's just like,
yeah, that's bad.
That's helping no one,
right?
And it's like you could still have in my mind, you could still have your views and denounce what they're saying, but help yourself by showing people, and then maybe somehow, I don't know how, but being like, yeah, we don't support this BS. Watch this. Look at this BS that the Americans are doing. What idiots, something like that.
Right. Well, I think here it's just a different. Well, one, there's this idea of face, right? And so face is kind of your outwards reputation. And if you criticize or make fun of, that's very damaging to face here in China. So that's one. Another thing too is that
it's like, how dare you make fun of us, kind of thing.
Right. It's disrespectful. It's
right.
And as Americans, we love laughing at ourselves and making fun of each other.
I mean, that's like one of our biggest forms of flattery in the U.S.
Right.
is making fun of someone.
Exactly. But I had a student ask me, what are my thoughts on like all the censorship on the internet? And my answer was, I didn't want to get political. I didn't want to talk about the government. But what I told him is, I said, the only, my thoughts are, obviously, for me as a Westerner, it's frustrating for me at times because it's difficult for me to communicate with some of my friends.
Right.
Like, if you don't have an iPhone, if you don't have an email or a WeChat, which like most people have one of those three.
I mean, no one in the U.S. has WeChat, though.
Right. I do have a couple ride or die friends. My buddy David downloaded WeChat.
I downloaded it. I've just never signed up for it. It's on my phone.
That's fair. Right.
No, but David, you're not better than me.
But the thing is that what I tried to explain to them was, obviously for me as a Westerner, it's more difficult for me to communicate with some of my friends. But the other thing is that it's limiting them to a lot of information. And I could care less about the entertainment. Like, yeah, the entertainment's great. Being able to watch certain television shows. It's too bad that they don't have access to those.
Right.
But there are academic materials that they don't have access to here in China because of censorship and different stuff like that.
Yeah,
I think that's a shame.
When you put it that way, that's definitely more dangerous than not being able to watch the latest South Park episode.
Exactly. And from my understanding of Chinese education is that a lot of students, I could be wrong about this, but I've read and been told that a lot of students have difficulty in China with critical thinking. And from what I've learned about Chinese education so far is it's a lot of it's like more of a Socratic method where the teachers will lecture, the students take notes.
Yeah, it is what it is, and we're telling you what it is.
Right. And so obviously, if that's how you learn, you're not going to develop those critical thinking skills. And
you're
then
not
not being
taught
able
to ask questions. You're not taught to dispute something.
And I will tell you this, Jared, my students do not really ask me questions. Because I think this comes back to the idea of face. Of if they ask me a question, it means they don't know the material, which means that they are inferior to their peers. So yeah. That's a big thing. So that was an interesting discussion, though, but I had to tread lightly because, I don't want to get fired and lose my job. I love it here. I'm very happy teaching here. And it's not my place to give them political opinions. I'm their English teacher. I'm not their political science teacher. I'm not an expert on politics anyways, so I don't feel it's my place in general to even talk about politics. The only thing I've talked about regarding politics is students have asked me opinions about American politics, which I am allowed to talk about. So yeah, but anyways, enough of that. I think you know what time it is. Yeah.
Well, hold on. I do know what time it is. And I'm also looking at our clock, and I want to ask you a question. We've been going, we're a little long in the tooth, and we've had a lot of great conversation here. Is it okay if I request that we skip shout-outs today? Or can you give one?
Yes. Okay, I'll give us
two.
one.
Okay.
I'll give one quick shout-out, and my quick shout-out goes out to
Spread
Chile,
a little
Peru,
love.
Ecuador, Costa Rica, Honduras, Guatemala, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Colombia, who have signed a... they have set a goal for 70% renewable energy by 2030. So I think that's great.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good work to these 9 South American countries.
You betcha.
It's awesome and a great step towards our future. All right,
Now-
Jared, now I think you know what time it is.
I do know what time it is. I have a great shout out that we'll talk about next episode, and I want to because I also think it could spur on some good conversation. But
Sounds good.
We have priorities here at the Untranslatable
That is
Podcast.
true.
You know what that is? Untranslatables, bitch.
You better believe it.
Sorry, I was feeling
So-
it.
I'll get us started today, Jared. I have, because of Oktoberfest going on, I thought it would only be fair to have a couple German ones today. So,
Okay.
my first one for you is German, and it is Ich stehe auf dem Schlauch.
I stand on the Schlauch. I don't know what Schlauch is.
Tube.
Oh, I stand on the tube. I stand on the tube. There's like, it's not standing on a high horse, is it?
No.
Where it's like you're like think you're better than everyone. Is it like a balance kind of thing? Anything related to almost falling or like taking a risk or like not being sure of something, or it's like you're like teeter-tottering between two options.
You just said it more or less.
Not sure of something.
There we go. Yeah, basically you say this when you have no idea what's going on.
Now, for everyone out there, that's critical thinking right there.
There we go. That's
I'm
true.
so proud of myself. I worked that one out. My first one is Arabic, and it is Bat Chabdi, and it is popped my liver.
Well, my knowledge of Arabic countries is most of them are dry, so I don't think this is an alcohol reference.
No.
And this
I'll,
one?
I'll clarify.
Uh-huh.
This is actually from the Gulf. It's a Gulf dialect, so that includes like
Okay.
Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Iran, UAE, Oman, for example.
Is this to be like super excited about something?
Actually, it's kind of the opposite.
Oh,
Not the full opposite though. Let me be clear.
okay.
So, we were talking a couple episodes ago about luxury vacations and how it would be cheap if we had just like 48 of our closest friends to come with us.
Right.
And I thought financially that's a great idea, but I also know that someone's gonna like at least 30 of those people would pop my liver, and it would ruin
They
the
just drive you crazy,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Or irritate you, get on your nerves.
When you're telling someone how annoyed you are with someone or a situation. But yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
Drive you
Oh,
crazy.
nice.
You're super annoyed with something. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I got another one for you, Jared, that's German. It is Du bist auf dem Holzweg.
You're on the wood away. What? Hold on.
Wood path.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
You're on the wood path. Is it like you're on a good you're on the right path, like you're doing well in life, essentially?
I'd say the opposite.
Oh, you're not doing well in life. You're on a bad path and things are not going well.
Yeah, I would also say you can use this to say like basically like no, you're wrong.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You're incorrect. You're wrong. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's like you're like totally thinking the wrong. Like, what are you thinking? Essentially,
Right.
like you're on
Right.
a wood path. You crazy?
Right. Right.
Okay. One more from me. Norwegian, and it's akoka bort I kalen. To boil away or into nothing in the cabbage. To boil away nothing in the cabbage. To boil into nothing in the cabbage. That's listen.
Okay.
I'm here to tell you the literal. It's not supposed to make
Right,
sense. That's the
right,
point of Untranslatables. I'm trying
Very
to make
true.
it make sense.
Right. Let's see here. Can you give me a clue?
Like to boil away nothing into the cabbage. Let's say that's what it is. To get okay. So
Is this like, wait, is this like to try something and like nothing comes to fruition?
you son of a bitch.
All right. All
When
right.
an idea or plan comes to nothing through waffling, which is literally exactly what you just said. That was
Yeah.
very impressive, Chad.
All right. I got
I'm
one last one
empowered right
for
now.
you.
Just throwing that out.
Good. You should be. I got one last one for you, though, Jared, before you get too empowered. This one is Chinese,
Okay.
and I'm going to, it doesn't really make sense, but I'm going to
That's
give
the
it.
point, once again, of the untranslatables.
So here we go. It is Tan Hua Luan Sui, which means literally heaven, flowers, disorder, chaos or riot, and fall. So heaven, flowers, chaos, fall.
Is it just like you're overwhelmed?
Not quite. This one has to do with how would we say this? And well, they have one untranslatable or phrase we would use in English. Well, what do you know? Do you know that it's kind of an older phrase, but people say you're a blank Kathy?
Chatty Cathy?
There we go. That's basically what this one is a chatterbox or mouth like running water, I guess is the closest.
That's hilarious.
That's what they have written here, yeah.
I feel like talking a lot is not something that is looked upon fondly in China.
I think a lot of places it's not looked upon fondly, and
That's
to be
fair. I
honest
get
with you,
annoyed
Jared,
easily myself.
right.
Here in
I
America.
wish I would talk less, to be honest. I think sometimes
Dude.
I talk too much.
This is one of the greatest things about the podcast, where if we're not talking, we're not doing the podcast. So I feel free to talk as much as I want. But
That's fair.
I come back
That's a good
from
point.
a lot of places thinking I could have talked less. Like, that's how I feel like I leave a lot of situations.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely.
But
Yeah.
I also think that that's not the mentality of someone that's trying to empower themselves. As, for example, I always tell you how I'm afraid to bother people. And it's like,
Right.
it's kind of something that you have to break through,
Absolutely. Well, and I want to ask you as well, why do you think you're bothering people? Is it because you are asking them to do something for you? Is it because you think you are a legit inconvenience to them? What do you think it is?
I think whatever it is I'm asking is an inconvenience and not the most important thing. Or they're not where it's like, why would I think this person would help me? Where it's like,
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I'm a nuisance. Where it's I don't know why that is though.
Okay.
But okay. So we're talking about how to empower students and yourself, right? I have
Yes.
two very distinct stories that have come to me in my lifetime where the complete opposite has happened.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And they're both actually kind of similar, so I'll say them quickly. One of them was I lived in Germany, and we had to write in my English class. We had to write a descriptive essay about a location or a thing. I had just been to Philadelphia because my sister was doing college tours, and she went to UPenn in Philadelphia, and I went along with them. And so my descriptive thing was about Philadelphia, and I thought it was one of the greatest things I might have written to this day. And I
wow.
had my parents read it, and they're like, where did you copy it? Like, they literally asked me, where did you get this from? Like, they're like, where did you, you obviously didn't write this. Where did you get this from? And it was like, the one good thing I do, and it really bummed me out. And I have another one similar to that. It was when I was in college, I wrote a paper about blaxploitation. It was an ethnic studies sort of final essay
I remember
paper.
you telling me about that.
Yeah, it was kind of a similar thing. I just asked my mom or my parents, I'm not going to specify which one, to
They do listen to this.
to proofread it. And they proofread it. They're like, this is great. But that teachers now have software to figure out if stuff is plagiarized or not.
They thought you plagiarized again.
And I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
I know they have that. What does that do with anything? And they're like, just
Right.
making sure if you want to change any. I was like, no, I wrote this. It's like,
Right.
And it's like, those were two moments of my life where I remember specifically being like, why do I even try to do my best here? If it's
Right.
just you don't even believe that I did it,
Right.
And I think it's easier to take that route than it is to empower people, though. In their defense, I think it's easy to be critical, especially when you want someone to do their best.
Sure.
And you almost feel like maybe you're empowering someone through being overly critical, by trying to get them to bring out the best in them.
Right.
And I think that that's a common sort of misstep in trying to empower people.
Well, I think it depends on what your belief is of how you yourself are empowered. Some people are very motivated by the haters and the naysayers and the people giving them negative criticism.
You know, I think I am too, but I don't think it's healthy motivation. Like, I think it's that
Okay.
the motivation I get from that is wanting to like beat people, wanting to squash
Sure.
people. That seems
Right.
to be the motivation I get from that.
Right. You're right. It comes from a different place. It doesn't come from you want to do good because you want the best for yourself. It's I'm going to show these people. You're right.
Right.
You're right. 100%. Well, yeah. So we are talking about empowering students and yourself. And I think one thing, at least, that I try to do as a teacher with my students to empower them is I try to give them a lot of encouragement, praise, and I try to, whenever possible, use them as positive examples in my class. And then sometimes when I give...
What do you consider a positive example? I don't think I even fully know what that means.
If a student really answers a question very clearly, I'll say
okay.
that is how you answer a question right there.
Will you, something I liked as a kid, will you piggyback off of the student's example and like use it as an example for yourself? I think when you take on their example and sort of like run with it, it's also very empowering. We'll be like, oh, that's I didn't think about it that way. Maybe,
Absolutely.
if we were to do this and that and whatever it is you're teaching about.
I do try to do that as much as possible. It's a little difficult for the class I teach right now because it's a very content-based course on teaching methodology.
It's a big class.
Yeah, so and I have over 40 students in every one of my classes, so it's
They're
difficult to do that.
There's a lot of
Also
things
very
making
true.
it difficult.
Right.
But I think that's a challenge for you that, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I assume, sorry, I'm playing with my sandals and it's knocking. Anyway, I imagine you want to, that's something that you would like to figure out. Like it's a challenge for you.
We're
How can I get these
slowly
people
getting there.
to be more excited or seem more excited, to be
Right.
more empowered to speak up?
And maybe after this semester, we should do an episode on that because hopefully by the end of the semester, I'll have some good things and good tips. But today we're talking about empowerment.
Or not.
And
That would be interesting too.
right. The other thing is I try to, and I've done this with my classes this week, is I try to give the students more responsibility and also more independence in what we do in class. So I did an activity this week. It's called a jigsaw activity. And a jigsaw activity is basically where the teacher acts more as a facilitator and not a traditional teacher, and the students teach each other. And I saw, just by the look of my students' faces, seeing them interact with each other, I think they learn the material much more thoroughly than if I would have just lectured them. Because one, they had to teach it to each other.
And they're probably also a little more comfortable in those situations than like speaking out in front of a big class.
Exactly. And that's the thing, though, is I think that gives students a lot of confidence because when you just force students to speak in front of class, it's awkward. Their peers are all staring at them. But when you have them do smaller group work, they, I think, begin to feel a lot more confident, more empowered. And they have more opportunities to talk to their peers, which I think is also important. When the times that I felt most empowered in life is not when I've suggested a good idea, but when someone suggested an idea to me, I learn from it, and maybe I even give them feedback that helps them improve that idea even more.
Yeah.
That
and
to
then
me
you
is
see them
incredibly
use it.
empowering. Exactly. Like
That's
you
a
said
big
with
thing that
the
happens.
example.
That's a big thing that happens for me in the corporate world too. Like, let's be clear, it doesn't happen a lot. I'm not often giving people advice and then seeing it turn out amazing. But I mean, just
Right.
like when that
Not
does
yet.
happen, it has happened though. Let's be clear.
Right.
God damn it. When it does happen, though, it does feel good to, for you to... And once again, though, it goes along with what I was asking you before about using people's, what people bring up in class as your sort of muse for the next topic or whatever. It feels good to do something like that in an office setting, too, where it's like, oh, how about, have you tried this? And then, a couple weeks later, you see them presenting it, and it's like, oh, that's crazy. They have that up there because
Right.
I mentioned that might be a good idea.
Right. Yeah, and I think that makes everybody feel more empowered. At least the person giving the idea and the idea receiver.
Right.
Another thing that I think is really important for empowerment as a student and in general life as well is knowing that your voice is heard. No one likes to talk to deaf ears. So having your voice be heard, and also being a good listener to others, I think really empowers others. Asking questions, engaging with them. I'll tell you probably the biggest takeaway I got. I went to Germany last year when I was on the job hunt, and my biggest takeaway from teaching all these more conversation-based classes, and when I say conversation-based, I mean we literally sat on couches and talked for an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it was very different than any other lesson I had taught. There was no textbook. There was no materials really at all besides like a little whiteboard where you could write vocab words on. And to me, the biggest takeaway from that experience was be interested. And when you're interested, I think others really feel that they have a voice.
Yes.
And I would say in so many ways, it's better to be interested than be interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's what I always try to tell myself before I go out and hang out with anyone, or when I used to go out on dates or stuff like that, where it's like, don't try to be interesting. Try to get as much as the interesting stuff out of the other person. Now, let me be clear.
Absolutely.
Most times I failed miserably, but that was what that was in my head.
I think you're being too hard on yourself, but
that was in my head when I went into the situation, and then I get all nervous and I just chatter. Anyway, I think that's. But it's hard, right? Like, it's easier said than done. Like, these are the things that you'd like to do.
Of course, absolutely.
But how often do you see it working out that way versus not? Now, maybe I'm cynical and I'm like, 10% of the time it works out the way you hope through empowerment. You get to see that, and most of the time you're just like as a teacher, especially, you have to be okay with not getting that sort of feedback or response you hope for.
Of course, but I think the fact that you try in itself is also a bit empowering. Like this was the
for
first
you,
time
not
I've
for
done
the students. You mean
right?
Okay.
But for the students too, I think if you can try to share the mindset that it's better for them to try and fail than not try at all. And in my class, at least in terms of failure, right now, I mean we're only 5-6 weeks into the semester, so for now the only really failure that happens is them not really participating in class. Like no one is failing my class right now in terms of grades. And so if you can, I try to tell my students
but are people
that my
failing
classroom,
to participate?
in the first couple of weeks, I mean, I would have to call on them. Now it's getting much better, but I've also changed around my classroom a lot because I hadn't anticipated such a large class. I now have a lot more group discussion. I go amongst the groups, which is also my next tip for teachers out there to empower your students is work with the students. Don't lecture at them, work with them. So have them do small groups, have them do pair work, and go around and talk to them. And I can tell
And
after I
just
talk to
observe.
the students.
Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. Just make sure they're actually doing what you said to do. It's like, they're doing it. Or guide it. Can you guide it too?
I would say it's better to guide and interact than just observe, because I think observe, it's more like, oh God, the teacher's watching me, and oh no, am I saying the right thing? Whereas if you
like
interact
looking over
with
your
them,
shoulder, kind of, yeah.
Right. And even when I do observe, I will make comments where like my last lesson yesterday, I had them write down 3 challenges that teachers face. And I was walking around and they were writing down and talking in pairs. And where I would write down, I would say stuff like, oh, that's a great idea. Or oh, wow, I never thought of that challenge, but that is a big challenge. And some of them I'd look and one of them was the big challenge was students not talking in class. And I saw that and I laughed. And I told the student, I was like, yep. I was like, yep, I have that problem every day. But they laughed as well. So, but I think another key thing in life and in teaching is I think people tend to feel much more empowered when they feel they have decisions to make. For the most part in life, not always, but for the most part, we usually have a couple options, a couple decisions to make. I think knowing that you have a few decisions makes you feel much more empowered. Because if I just think, oh, this is my only option, this is all I can do, so I have to do it, that's not really, at least for me, that always doesn't make me feel empowered. It makes me feel very stuck.
At my first post-college job, and actually at my first post-college job, I felt whatever the opposite of empowered is, that's what I felt. Because it is exactly what you're saying, where it's like I would do something, and I feel like it would just like disappear into the ether, you know? Where it's like, I feel like what I'm doing has no benefit to any part of this company right now. And you kind of feel like you don't feel like you're part of anything, you know? Where it's like, I feel like I'm just doing this so you can give me something to do or something like that. And I've had no sort of empowerment. I didn't care about what I was doing. I didn't really care about the company just because I feel like I had no input in what's happening at this company.
Right. And not only that, but I think that also goes along with the idea of you need to, as a teacher and as just a person living life, you have to focus on interests and passions. You know, for me, it's a little difficult because I teach a content course, but if I was just doing a speaking and listening class with no textbook, we would only be talking about stuff that students are passionate about and stuff that's kind of controversial and interesting. Because I think that really gets you thinking and it gets you going. So I think that's really
passionate
important.
about what I was doing either, even if I so that's very true. I agree with that.
Right. Yeah, that's a big one for sure.
How do you, Chad, empower yourself as the teacher?
The key thing for me is trying new things and not being too critical if they don't work out the way I thought they would. So I went out on a limb with this jigsaw activity because I have large classes. I wasn't sure how it would work. Because I'd never done it with my classes before, I didn't know how long it would take. But now I feel so happy that I did this activity. There's a lot my students learn from it, from the teacher side of view, because we talk about, you know, why we do things as teachers a lot in my class. So they could kind of see what my thinking was behind this. But also, it made me feel empowered seeing the students interact and work and seeing kind of those light bulb moments go off in class. So for me, it's just being able and willing to take risks in my teaching. And you know, the key for me as well is I've only been teaching now. This will be, after this academic year, I think it'll be my 6th year of teaching, which to some people they might think that's
Sounds
a long
like a lot
time.
to me.
But for I know a lot of teachers who've taught longer than 20 years.
Right.
And so for me, it's important to try to also mix what I've learned in grad school and what I know about theories of language learning, how we learn languages, with the practicality of teaching.
Right.
But to me, that's very empowering when I'm able to kind of fuse those two things together, fusing theory and practice together.
That's a great point, actually. You know, I used to talk a lot about how like I use nothing from college, like in my professional, not nothing. When I mean nothing from like the classroom really. Like most of the stuff is just learned on the job kind of stuff. But in those few experiences where it's like, oh, I'm literally using, like, I know how to do this because I remember doing this in the classroom. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that
it's a
feeling.
great feeling.
It feels so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like, oh yeah, I remember this in economics, like macroeconomics 201 or something like that.
Right.
Like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
And it is
it's
empowering
really great
to like actually know that you know something like that.
Well, and that's the thing. I think being able to apply that knowledge. So I always usually by the end of a chapter with my students, I try to have them do some activity where they apply that knowledge. And so a lot of times it ends up being some type of homework assignment, but I still think it's really good. And another thing too, I think regarding empowerment is you have to have a personal like stake in something, but you also have to hold yourself accountable and be responsible. Because I think that also will give you empowerment when you say, well, this was really difficult, but I stuck with it and I did it. And to me, that's a really, but if you don't hold yourself accountable, you won't care if you finish something that you said you were going to do. So I think that's
Set
a really big
goals.
key as well. Right. Exactly. And also, though, don't be afraid if you do set goals and you don't reach all of them. If you don't reach them, use that as an
kills me.
opportunity.
I get so mad at myself.
It sucks, but I think it's an opportunity to reflect and figure out why. And hopefully that will make you better for the next time you set goals and you will be able to achieve those. So I think that's really
In
great.
theory, that sounds nicely. It sounds nice when you say it. That's for sure.
Absolutely. A last thing that I would think of too to try to empower my students is have the students share their work with each other and also assess their work. Now, I will say though, when you do this, you need to make sure your students you teach them how to give feedback because not all students know how to do this. And a colleague of mine was telling me she had her students self-assess themselves and each other, and they were like super critical and super harsh. And then so she had to like be like, all right, look, let's take a step back. if I was your teacher and I gave you this feedback, how would you feel? And the student's like, well,
Right.
we'd feel terrible. So you have to teach them. But I think when you can self-assess your work and also assess your peers' work, I think it's really a great way to empower yourself, get really good feedback. And it comes from a different place when you're doing it yourself and when your peers are doing it. Because I think a lot of times with the teacher, you just view it differently than you do self-assessment and peer assessment.
I was in AP English in high school, not to brag, and
Me too. Me too.
and we would start a lot of our classes with grammar sheets. So it would be like 10 sentences, and you literally just go through and correct all the grammar in it. And my teacher was like, there'd be, say, 4 to 8 grammar mistakes in every sentence. And
wow.
my teacher was the kind of teacher that would be like, if you miss one mistake, you got that one wrong. Like that,
Okay.
you got 1 out of the 10 wrong if you miss one
Right.
out of like the 6 mistakes or whatever.
Right.
And what he would also do is he would then say, all right, pass it to the person behind you or to the left or right of you or in front of you or something like that. And that person grades it. And it added a weird amount of accountability / empowerment for me personally. And I think most of the people in there to make sure they
Right.
do their best. No, it's different having your classmates see your grade. Like it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
than just having it handed to you and you can kind of like look at it like either it's great or you kind of hide it to yourself.
Right.
Like it's very different
Right.
when your class, and it's a weird sort of torturous like empowerment in a weird way.
Yeah.
I think that's empowerment, but unhealthy empowerment.
I think to a certain extent, absolutely.
Yeah, but this was like a daily occurrence. So
Okay. Well, for you, it probably began as torture, and towards the end, you probably just were used to it and it didn't bother you, would be my guess.
yeah. I mean, people definitely became more comfortable with failure.
Right.
Like you're not as embarrassed by that stuff, and you're a little more free to talk about these things. Because I think even just talking about failure is something that I struggled with a lot. And I mean, I didn't fail often, not to brag, no. But like even when you do even on the occasions that I did worse than I would like, it's embarrassing. You don't even want to talk about it. Like someone asks, "How'd you do?" You're like, "Fine," and then you just leave it at that.
But I think being able to... Now, obviously, failure is never good per se, and it definitely usually doesn't make us feel good. But I think if you can use that failure as I know I'm coming from a very optimistic, maybe even overly optimistic point of view for this episode, but I think failure is super important to use as a stepping stone. Failure, unless you die tomorrow, failure is never going to be the last. Like
Easy,
that was
Chad.
you failed,
Slipping
and
on
that's the
gator
last,
piss.
the last thing you do.
I don't like you putting that out there.
So failure is always just the next stepping stone. And if you can look at it that way, I think failure becomes incredibly empowering. I'm not saying you should fail as in don't give it your best effort, just kind of fail because you're like, oh, whatever, doesn't matter. But I think if you
Right.
truly give it your effort and you do fail, I think there's a lot that can be learned, and I think it is worthwhile. And it's empowering. I think if you...
Yeah.
But if you look at failure as, oh, I failed and I'm terrible and I'm never going to accomplish anything, then obviously it's not empowering. But I think empowerment is a mindset. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead, Jared.
No. My struggle is just that not being hard on yourself, But then
Right.
it's like most situations, it's like you got to look. How would someone else? How would you react if you were asking for the same thing that you made whatever mistake on? Like if you were asking that from someone else and they gave it to you and made that mistake, would you be this hard on the person that gave it to you?
Right.
And if
Right.
so, you're
And
probably an asshole. Just to be clear.
That's true. I mean, we usually are our worst critics.
For
Our
sure.
best or our worst critics, depending on how you look at that.
Once
But yeah,
again.
absolutely. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I think another key thing, too, regarding empowerment, not only in the classroom but in life, is just communicating with people. I think especially when you can build relationships with people, I think, and learn from one another, to me, that's also incredibly empowering. Like, I know we joke a lot about, like, our friendship and stuff like that, but Jared, you may not realize this, but you and this podcast have empowered me in so many different ways. I know it sounds cheesy. I know it sounds
Chad.
cliche.
Because I understand 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely in general. You know what doesn't make me more confident? Seeing the downloads. But you know what does make me more confident is having to is having the structure one, and like just having the outlet to speak freely is very empowering.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, Jared, I think another thing about empowerment is surrounding yourself with empowering thoughts and ideas. And music can be very empowering in so many ways. And that brings us to our song of the pod today, which is by one of my favorite groups called the Avett Brothers. And the song is called Head Full of Doubt / Road Full of Promise.
Bro, I love this song. I've heard of the Avett Brothers, but I've never really listened to their stuff. And I don't know if I would call it empowering, but it really did make me like think a lot about myself and about like the stuff we always talk about here about how much I doubt myself, you know?
Right.
And I loved it. It was great. I can't believe I don't listen to the Avett Brothers. I feel like such an idiot.
They're
I love
awesome.
this song.
They are awesome. There's so much good music I could recommend to you and our listeners by them. If you do have Spotify, just check out their This Is section, and every song on there is fantastic. But there's a line in the song. Let me see if I can find it really quick. There's a line in the song that specifically made me pick this song for this week. Basically, the end of the line is I'm trying to hear the melody in my head right now. The end of the line is like something about, so go ahead and be it. Here we go, right here. So I believe it's the chorus. Maybe not. I think it's a verse. But here, when nothing is owed or deserved or expected, and your life doesn't change by the man that's elected, if you're loved by someone, you're never rejected. Right here, this is the line. Decide what to be and go be it. To me, when I heard that line, it really resonated with me. It's heavy.
That's tough, dude. That's tough. You know, especially someone like me. In my head, I have all these lofty goals and expectations of myself and plans. And it's just like, then the action part is the most difficult part, you know? And
Absolutely.
it is, and all, you know, I can think about all the reasons why I would like not be able to do it and be like, well, I'll get to it this point because, you know, this part I can't do, or this I'll definitely mess up, or I don't know how to do this. And it's crippling for me and a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I think all of our listeners can relate to sitting at home on their laptop, or even before we had laptops, sitting there trying to write their homework. And like the hardest part is just sitting down and actually doing it.
Yeah.
And getting that action. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to read a couple more lyrics from the song, because I think that this song is chock full of goodies.
Please. I love
in
this
terms
song.
of empowerment. Yeah, and it's great. And the Avett Brothers are also just
Americans,
fantastic
though, sorry.
writers. They are, yeah. That falls on me, people. That's my fault.
No, it's not your fault. But it is very fitting to this episode, though. We do say either something international or very apropos to the episode.
Right, and this one is definitely very apropos. I think the title alone, Head Full of Doubt, Road Full of Promise. I think the key with empowerment is getting rid of these doubts. And it's not easy. You know, I think I've made things today sound much easier than they are, but I don't mean that any of this is simple. It's not easy to empower yourself, and it's not simple. But,
or your students, for that, too.
Right. But so I'm just going to read some of these lyrics. So the song starts off with, there's a darkness upon me that's flooded in light. In the fine print, they tell me what's wrong and what's right. And it comes in black and it comes in white, and I'm frightened by those that don't see it. So to me, when I hear this first verse, to me, it just reminds me of all these people that didn't reach their full potential in life because they just didn't see it. They were held back by their doubt. And then it goes on right here, which I love. There was a dream, and one day I could see it. Like a bird in a cage, I broke in and demanded that somebody free it. And there was a kid with a head full of doubt. So I love this line. So I'll scream till I die, and the last of those bad thoughts are finally out. And I think this isn't...
These lyrics are amazing, by the way. I love
They
all
are.
of this.
These guys are
This is a poem.
amazing songwriters.
This is the poem.
It is. And it sounds really... The key, too, with really good songwriting is it sounds good when you read it, too. Because some songs are just very repetitive, so you can't read it. But this, you could read as a poem.
It sounds
You
beautiful
really
just
could.
listening to you say it.
I know, right? It's that podcast voice. No, I'm just kidding. But the thing is, though, here is, and those bad thoughts are finally out. I think it's also important, and a step to empowerment is letting those bad thoughts and those bad ideas out. And not being, I think it's very easy to, especially if you're brainstorming ideas, it's very easy to limit yourself by saying, oh, that's a bad idea, that's a bad idea, that's a bad idea. But that will stop from all the good ideas coming out. I think you need to just try to let your ideas flow and worry about if they're good or bad later.
Right now.
Right?
Yeah,
I'm talking to you, Jared. I think that's the key, though, is that we are so critical that us being so critical doesn't let us express ourselves freely and creatively. But once you can get to that level, like that's why when I feel bad for Jared, because when I send him podcast ideas, I just usually send him a shitstorm of random ideas. I'm just like, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea. I don't wait. I don't process what's a good one or a bad one. I just send him ideas because I know we'll weed out the good ones and the bad ones later.
Yeah.
So that's
and
a
we
key.
usually talk them out too, which is I think also, as you mentioned before, an important part of empowerment is having that other person to bounce ideas off of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we definitely have both thrown each other. I've definitely thrown you some pretty terrible ideas, but we've made great ideas out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember one a couple months ago where I was like, "This sounds bad, but I feel like there's something here," and whatever it was, we turned it into something good.
And it came out great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that I can't think of one single instance where the first idea I had was a great idea. That's not how great ideas become great ideas.
Traveling circus.
Right. That was our idea for our initial podcast name, was Traveling Circus. And I'm much happier with Untranslatable Podcast, me personally.
Me too. You betcha.
But anyways, so we hope the song Head Full of Doubt, Road Full of Promise by the Avett Brothers will make you feel empowered, inspired, and ready to really carp all those DMs or seize the day, as they say. Yeah. I went there, Jared. I went there. All right. Well, now I think it's time for, we are language lovers and language learners here. And I have a Chinese word of the pod today. And now I feel like I should have chosen a different one because based on what we've talked about, this word doesn't really apply. But the word I have today is duli, which means independent. And the reason why I chose this one, because as a teacher, I think giving students their own independence empowers them. But I do think what we've mentioned, Jared, a lot of empowerment comes from togetherness as well and not only independence.
Yeah. That's true. But you're still giving the students the independence to work together and not,
That's true. Yeah.
That's how we do it.
Brilliant. That's right.
I'm coming with the Spanish word of the pod, and it is very apropos, and it's empoderado.
Which I'm assuming means empowerment.
Yes, very good. Very good.
Brilliant. The only reason why I guessed that is you told me it was apropos. But yeah.
Well, I was hoping, that's the struggle with a lot of words. I try to find words that aren't cognates, but a lot, like, I also wanted to use confident, but I've used that before, and it's also cognate as well. So, Spanish is very similar to English. It's a challenge.
Right. So now, Jared, I usually come with some jokes. Instead, this week, I messaged Jared when we were prepping for this episode, and I said, be ready for some cheesy inspirational quotes. Instead of cheesy, I found some funny ones. I guess some of them might be a little cheesy, but some of these are good. Some of these are by like comedians and actors. Some of these are just like anonymous ones. So the first one I'm going to give you, Jared, is by one of my favorite comedians, George Carlin, who did a lot of very good and very critical stuff on society and life. And so this first one is by George Carlin, and it is, if you try to fail and succeed, which have you done?
Oh my God. Oh, that's not even a great joke. That's like a great mind F of a question.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's a mind fork right there, Jared.
Yes.
That is an extreme mind fork. Yeah. Right. Okay, my next one is from, I don't know who this gentleman is, but Jeffrey Gittimer, and it is, change is not a four-letter word, but often your reaction to it is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I can think of two four-letter words that definitely I've said when there have been some unexpected changes in life. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big one. There's a Donald Trump one on there. I'm not going to use that one though. That's for sure, because that's also not a very good quote. Anyways, okay,
really?
here we
That's
go,
a
Jared. A diamond is merely a lump of coal that did well under pressure.
Yeah, that's a classic. That's a classic. Similar to the American Untranslatable, The Diamond in the Rough.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see here. Let me find a couple other good ones here. Oh, right here. This is a funny one. Age is of no importance unless you're a cheese.
Oh my gosh. That's very joyous.
It's true though. I mean,
I guess that's true.
I think
or wine.
Right.
Or whiskey.
Maybe, yeah. Anything
All right,
that ages
sorry.
well,
I'm sorry.
because I think so many people are very concerned with their own timelines and they compare it too much to others. But here's the thing: doesn't matter. Who cares if you're 30 and you graduate college? Who cares if you're 50 and you get married the first time? What matters is you do it at your own pace and you do what's best and what's right for you. And it's different for everybody.
I believe it was Mel Brooks. He's like a comedian, actor kind of, comedian, writer
and
kind
a
of dude.
director. Yeah.
He had a quote I remember where he was talking about how, he's in his early 90s at this point probably, or at least late 80s. And he's talking about how, think about how much you changed from when you were 10 or 20 to 20 or like 20 to 30. And like how much you've learned. And it's like, why do you think that stopped just because, I'm 70 turning 80? He's like,
right.
If you want specifically to, like that is still happening and that can still happen. Right. And that growth can be just as powerful from when you're 10 to 20 as you are from, 60 to 70.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And my last one comes to you from one of my favorite characters from The Office, Michael Scott. And he always says things that makes no sense, and this goes along those lines. I am an early bird and a night owl, so I am wise and I have worms.
Oh my God. I love that. That's great. That's such a good show.
Yeah. Check out The Office if you want some very odd ways to become empowered, or not how to not empower people, that's for sure. Well, Jared, I want to sum up this episode with kind of a quote that I don't think either of us said, but I think there were sentiments throughout the main segment today. And I'd like to wrap up this episode with a quote that basically more or less means that opportunities and chances always lie within every obstacle. And when you understand that and realize that, I think you can really become on the path to empower yourself and empower others.
I agree with you. Honestly, I think I'm just starting to understand that, being someone that has come through pretty good on the other side of a kind of scary layoff.
Right.
And I think, if anything, I'm living proof of that.
Yeah. And it was so funny because, I knew after you got laid off, I knew you would find something good. And I figured you'd probably find something better and hopefully be even happier. And, I can't read your mind and I'm not inside your head, but I do think, at least being on the other side, that the layoff was probably a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways for you.
I think so, probably.
But it's hard when you're that person going through that at the time.
Right.
But I think afterwards it's definitely easy to realize, like, oh wow, like maybe that was actually good I got laid off.
Yeah. Allowed me to spread my wings and fly, people.
Exactly. And I try to keep this in mind whenever something slightly inconvenient happens here in China. Thankfully, I'm going to knock on wood, there hasn't been too much yet. But it's just a different culture and things happen here at a different pace than what I'm used to. Yeah. And so you have to just be aware of those things. So it's very important. So yeah.
You betcha.
So we hope you've enjoyed this episode today, and hopefully you have a couple new tools in your toolkit to empower yourself or your students, or both, really. I don't think empowerment happens just on yourself alone. a lot of
Have
times
you?
there's
Sorry,
a lot
I
of
never
togetherness.
do this.
Yeah,
I never do this. You have students empower you?
absolutely.
Okay.
All the time. Yeah. And I think the students who empower me tend to come from not the compliments. I mean, compliments are always great. Also, give us some compliments on iTunes or Stitcher with 5-star
little
reviews.
love.
But I tend to get empowered from the students that do ask me questions, and they're questions that I can't answer, or it's where I have to really think, and just improving myself and seeing my students improve, I think is very empowering. And it's a two-way street. As a teacher, you are never just stagnant. It's not a static role. It's a very dynamic role. So my students definitely empower me, and I'm happy to work with such amazing students now and when I was in the Czech Republic and when I was in the United States. Absolutely. So we hope we were able to empower you.
You betcha.
And hopefully you can empower us a little bit as well by interacting with us on our various social media platforms. Check us out on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. Check out our YouTube channel, Untranslatable Podcast, as well, for Songs of the Pod. And you can actually watch us and see when we are doing ridiculous things and doing air quotes or whatever. So check us out on YouTube. And lastly, as I mentioned, please 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. Give us some feedback and let us know how we can make this podcast better for you. We would really appreciate it. So thank you. And as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, Děkujeme, muchas gracias, and shisha.